China wants a stable money supply for the economy on fiscal steroids. It aims to prevent cash squeeze in the market when business activity rises.
The downward trend of social financing has been tamed. Now, given China's current economic situation, there's still room for reserve requirement ratio cut, but the room is much smaller than in previous years. Overall, the prudent monetary policy tone hasn't changed. We will take a market-oriented approach when it comes to managing interest rates and use supply-side reform to reduce the risk of lending among small companies, to drag down the overall cost of financing in China.
The PBOC has been managing the expectations. It's been telling the market that it cares about jobs and inflation, but not so much about economic stimulus. That gives more room for the fiscal stimulus here, because tax cuts and government spending have a more direct impact on the economy. And there will unlikely be a flood of monetary easing like a decade ago. The central bank has dropped the neutrality of policy to pursue a prudent approach. That leads China to pursue longer debt maturities and long-term bank lending. But if the economy grows slower than expected in the next few quarters, there will be temporary cash reliefs for the market.
This is actually a compromise because using short-term liquidity boost, it can quickly turn into an inflation problem and doesn't really have a good money multiplier effect. So by issuing those long-term bonds, it can potentially support some of the longer-term infrastructure, for example, project, which can span over several years or even a decade.
China's A shares have seen wild rallies this year, and the bond market is showing rising asset bubble risk. So when will be a good time for the central bank to take actions?
In the first half of the year, I don't see much of the rate cuts happening, precisely because the stock market risk is rising. But around October, especially when it's entering the last quarter, I can see that there might be a lack of momentum because the tax cut, the effect will take about a year to really emerge. Then we might see more of a stimulus then.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Fed has decided not to raise interest rates this year as aggressively as before. That takes off some pressure on the Chinese yuan currency. The big uncertainty, though, is Europe, as the ECB lowers the 2019 and 2020 Eurozone growth forecasts.
So we will continue to see a monetary easing in Europe, and that can potentially put some pressure on China in terms of capital outflow. But since we're putting stronger control now, I do not see it has too much impact on China either.
As China prioritizes financial risk control, bank lending will remain the primary source of funding and credit for the economy. That's why analysts expect to see more banks issue perpetual bonds or debt without maturity dates to boost their long-term capital.
My name is Geng Geng. I've been using the Ant Forest program for more than 2 years. Now I've turned 10 virtual trees into real ones. I choose green travel every day to collect virtual green energy via the Ant Forest program. In the past, I barely walked, but now I walk as much as possible. It's healthy and also rewards me with virtual green energy. In 2018, I went to Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region to check my real trees. It was impressive. There I saw lines of sector trees planted on sand dunes. I realized the green energy I collected every day in Beijing could help to improve the environment in the remote desert. I felt a deep sense of achievement.
The Ant Forest program translates your low-carbon activity into what's called virtual green energy. Once you've generated enough of this, you qualify for a real tree. Some green public welfare organizations hire some local herdsmen to plant your real tree.
The Ant Forest program was launched on Alipay by Ant Financial Services Group in August of 2016. The program has since attracted 400 million users and more than 50 million real trees have been planted. So how did it achieve such success?
GD, the program's founder, attributes its stunning progress to two aspects. One is convenience, and two, it's something that people are genuinely concerned about.
The success is not because it's entertaining and interactive, but because it's part of the public interest. We believe that human nature is good. We lowered the threshold and cost to allow people to do good things. Users like to do small things every day to help protect the environment.
She said their parent company donates tens of millions of yuan to help run the program annually, whilst it's also providing much-needed jobs in highly underdeveloped area. Nie Yusheng is one of the planters. His family used to earn a paltry annual income from livestock grazing, but the program has allowed them to live much more comfortably of late.
My life has improved a lot. We make much more money now. We bought a car and various home appliances that we need.
The Ant Forester program is just one example of how China is going greener. In fact, a new study based on NASA satellite data has revealed that China and India, the world's most populous nations, are the leaders in this area. And many say those who are contributing to this green drive should be feeling very proud of their efforts.
No one probably imagined that Syrians fleeing for their lives in 2014 to the arid Rukban area near the Iraq-Jordan border would number 45,000 within a 5-year period, and that they'd be stranded and cut off from support, aid, food, water, and medicine for years, exposed to the elements in freezing cold winters and scorching hot summers. Syrians are returning home, but the displaced people stranded at Rukban are stuck, reportedly caught in a power struggle between rival extremists and Moscow and Damascus versus Washington. Tens of thousands of stranded Syrians living in tattered tents and mud huts whose lives are controlled by militants vying for power. The U.S. controls Syria's Rukban zone. Russia's government accuses the U.S. of holding the refugee camp hostage in order to validate a sustained presence there.
The camp is sealed off. It's been that way for a month. There's no movement from or to the camp. I can't leave.
Aid agencies and government officials are calling for repatriation of refugees, but the only way out for now is a medical corridor to Jordan, where about 100 people cross every day and are sent back after receiving treatment. Jordan's government has been criticized since 2016, when the Hashemite kingdom shut its borders to the desolate population after 6 Jordanian soldiers were killed by ISIS affiliates operating out of the remote desert area. Food and medical supply deliveries are sporadic. In January, a UN official described the situation as dire and a matter of life and death. Evacuating Rukban Syrians via humanitarian corridor is an urgent priority, but governing bodies controlling the area have to agree on coordination and logistics first.
Heart failure is a disease that affects millions of people worldwide. In the UK, survival rates after a diagnosis have modestly improved in the 21st century and lag behind other serious conditions such as cancer. But research led by a team at Imperial College London and the Medical Research Council is hoping to change that. 4D Survival is a computer program which tracks the motion of the heart in 3D. It was right at predicting which patients are most at risk from heart failure on 75% of occasions, compared with only 59% achieved by doctors.
I think the surprising thing for us was actually how poor the current tools are that doctors have available to make predictions about patients. They're relatively crude, they're not very reproducible, and they don't really capture the complex engineering, the motion of the heart, whereas a machine is really good at doing that.
Studies like these highlight the potential of machine learning and artificial intelligence, but they've also triggered concerns about the shifting role of medical professionals.
Computers will be better than humans in a whole range of tasks because they're extremely good at processing vast quantities of data. What they're not going to do is substitute for a doctor when it comes into looking deep into somebody's eyes and recognising the frailty of the human condition.
The next stage of Imperial's study is to test its effectiveness on several hundred patients. If the results support the findings, the aim would be to have it in use in the next 5 years and help an estimated 920,000 people living with heart failure in Britain.
The UK government has called on the health service to be more digital savvy and to embrace technology. Whilst artificial intelligence systems are not doctors, they can be a powerful tool for the medical profession that could lead to improved patient care and better survival rates.